I went to teach advanced physics. I have also a teaching diploma in human physiology. I also teach chemistry. I have 2 university degrees, a diploma. I am a scientific advisor to a few organizations, both international and UK-based. And finally, I work for free. I've never charged a penny. For 2 reasons. One, I can represent the poor, and secondly, nobody can tell me what to say, or more importantly, what not to say. With me, it is the truth, and in some countries, the truth comes as quite a surprise. I trained in the 1960s with microwave warfare with the military. I am very well acquainted with the effects of microwaves, which is, of course, what all of the transmitters, Wi-Fi, iPods, iPads, what they all use, microwaves. I trained with the military because at that time, microwaves during the Cold War were used as stealth weapons, as they still are today. Because of their use of stealth weapons, which I understood, that alerted me when this industry started to come out with cell phones and especially Wi-Fi for children, because I'm fully aware of the damage that it can cause to young girls and ladies. When I left the military, a small part of my employment for the government was to question captured spies during the Cold War, particularly spies which had specialist information on microwave warfare. I talked to terrorist groups. My main job was to actually interrogate and find out about corruption at high level in the English police and at high level in the English government. First of all, I'm talking about microwaves. Microwaves react with water, which is how microwave ovens work. Am I just going to stand here talking about endless science? Is there proof? Which is what everybody wants to know. And it is a very simple answer. The answer is yes. In fact, there is quite a lot of it. In fact, there is an enormous amount of it. The proof really came out with a document I have here. This particular document was the most top-secret document at its time, realizing that microwaves caused a lot of damage to water-based bodies. United States Defense Intelligence Agency published this document, which was circulated to all governments. This one piece of paper here with the one sentence is going to cause more death, more suffering, and more pain than the entire Second World War. What the governments did, and it is still in force today, they said, well, what we will look at for our safety standard, we will not take the level at which microwaves interact with the cellular processes in the body. We will choose a level up here that gives us total freedom, and it is the one used today for all of the cell phones, even the Tetra airwave system. And it is 6 minutes of warming. That's it. And it is why country after country are now finding they have leukemia clusters, cancer clusters, all sorts of problems going on. To my knowledge, there are 8,300 incriminating documents from the military explaining how microwaves cause illness. 5 high court cases in various countries proving that the cell towers and the cell phones cause cancer, neurological damage and physical damage. 14 epidemiological studies, a study on thousands of people over 10 years each. There are 14 of them. 23 now legal judgments which are not high court, where a magistrate or a mayor or somebody has intervened and ordered a transmitter to be turned off or taken down. There is plenty of legal proof. Parliamentary Assembly, Council of Europe. On page 3, because of all of the knowledge which has been gained and denied by the industry and some governments, Section 8.32 is very specific. Ban all mobile phones, DECT phones, Wi-Fi systems from classrooms and schools. It couldn't be more clear. They discuss the danger to the plants, insects, and animals, and they specifically target here the tetra airwave frequency. Insurance companies are now not covering illnesses from transmitters or cell phones or Wi-Fi. Many people, when they buy all of these gadgets for their children, they don't actually look at the small print at the back. The iPhone, it says it should be kept at least 15 millimeters away from the body. That's because it isn't safe. There is no other reason why you should keep it 15 millimeters from your body. It says, now, customers, when they buy these new gadgets, you agree not to sue the cell phone manufacturer for any bodily damages or harm. That's an industry protecting itself. The police do not know that they are actually a part of an epidemiological study, or the ambulance service or fire brigade, where the government themselves say we cannot rule out severe neurological damage and cancer. If all this is known, why aren't the government doing anything? The first answer, of course, is the most simple one, which is money, lots of it. Not for your country, but for specific people. Secondly, every single person with a cell phone can be tracked. And it may amaze you to know what they know about you. Even if your cell phone is off, and this is Scientific American, everywhere you go can be tracked. If you have one of those camera things, they can see through it. They can hear everything you're saying. You may be thinking, I'm not important. Why would somebody want to find out about me? You may think, I only sweep floors and I wash dishes, and I wouldn't be important enough for a spy to want to investigate me. In fact, you are the very person that they are looking for. There is a possibility of up to 40 countries that have access to your cell phone. There is now a detector, and it is in use, and it can detect, because of the immense computer powers that we have now, it can detect hormone levels in bodies, the molecular structure of the hormone levels in bodies, so it knows what your body is doing, and it can also look at your brain patterns, and because microwaves will go into the body, it will look at your brain pattern, and it can tell which parts of your brains are now active. And if they know which parts of your brains are active, of course, they can judge roughly what your mood is, and probably, in some cases, what you're thinking. And this machine is now working today. So not only can they know where you are, what you're doing, what you're saying, but they can look inside your body as well. So microwaves can be used as stealth weapons, but they can also be used to change the environment. Some storm clouds, high activity, the high electrical activity, actually produces gamma rays, radioactive rays. But if you drop a substance, a soft shiny metal like barium or aluminium, into the clouds will become radioactive. The clouds are also charged, and if you beam microwaves at the clouds, it is possible to physically change the weather. And if you can change the weather, you can either cause another country economic disaster, and this technology is available, which is another reason why the government will not interfere with the microwave industry. There were lots of experiments on lots of people without their knowledge, and this is documented. In 40 years, 500,000 people were tested without their knowledge, many to the point of death. They chose military personnel because military personnel are fit, they're active, and they make good case studies. They chose students, psychiatric patients, the poor, children over the age of 4, pregnant women, Muslims, and Catholics. And of course, anybody else that they decided to experiment on. In 1986, at a top-secret conference, a US weapons center, a gentleman made a speech, and he said, concerning the microwaves, he said, "We can change the behavior of cells, tissue, whole organisms, have a 6 times higher fetus mortality, cause birth defects, and induce cancer in human cells." That is the result of their research. If they want to be really mean, there are, to my knowledge, up to 600 pulse frequencies that can alter different bits of your body. And this is how the governments experiment on people, with either implants, putting out pulse frequencies, or they can put them with microwaves from Zelda. It's how they experiment on people. There are a list of microwaves when they're used as weapons. There are a list of pulse frequencies which can be used to entrain the brain or mess around with the normal, natural vibrational frequency of the body. You have lots of natural vibrational frequencies in your body. Your organs have a frequency, your glands, your cells, your brain has its own frequencies, and they can mess those up. There were several top-secret studies. I mean, I've made a list here, just flying out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and some of them used hundreds and thousands of people. This one here is the National Security Advisors, and with one of them, they were taken to court. The government were taken to court, and this was MK Ultra, the top secret. And it says, although the shocking details of medical ethics abuses by the US and Canadian governments were amply detailed, Washington and Canada, citing national security and government privilege, stalled for so long that cases never came to trial. The surviving victims settled for a pittance out of court. It took 50 years to get that to court, and 50 years is about the standard time that governments try to stall you for. There is no known safety level of microwave irradiation anywhere in the world published for a child. Why are you putting Wi-Fi in schools? A single day of a child in front of Wi-Fi in a school is a day too long. It is published and it is known that microwaves destroy the blood-brain barrier. Now, what that means is that as the child is in the womb and as the child is growing up, toxins from inside the body can go into the brain and cause damage. And essential chemicals inside the brain can come out and deprive the brain of what it needs. You are risking neural degenerative damage with your children with Wi-Fi in a classroom. And I can assure you, as true as I stand here, the levels of radiation in a classroom exceed those that are used in the Cold War to make people sick. If you add up the radiation a child is exposed to in a class of 20 or 30 transmitters, with one on the wall, with one in the playground, taking all of the calls from all the other classrooms and spreading around the school, it's pretty frightening. And this appeared in a scientific journal, August 2012. They have just suddenly realized what we have been saying all along. Children are not small adults. You don't look at an adult dose and scale it down for a child. That is wrong. They are immensely complex beings, immensely complex. This is a warning for the drugs industry that where they're putting adult dose, child dose, the child dose is wrong. It is a guess. But for microwave, there is no child safe level anyway. Children absorb, as it happens, more radiation than adults because they're smaller. And the smaller you are, the more you are to the size of the aerial, and the more you will resonate with the microwaves. If there is any doubt, there are 17 pages here of university-published papers explaining how fertility and reproductive organs in ladies are damaged by microwaves. Why people put Wi-Fi in schools, I can never understand it. Because it's cheaper to do that than it is use fiber optic cable and telephone cables. It's cheaper. I'd like you to imagine you are 15 years old and you are in school, or you are a teacher, a lady teacher in school. You have around 400,000 eggs, follicles in your ovaries, which can develop into eggs. They are being irradiated from your Wi-Fi. This particular DNA inside the follicles or the eggs suffers 10 times more damage from radiation than any other DNA in the body. So even if the children had a safety level, it would be a factor of 10 out anyway. And this particular DNA, the mitochondrial DNA, is irreparable. If you have a child, that child can be born with a genetic abnormality. But because it is irreparable, that child's child will also carry that same genetic disorder, and her child will carry the same disorder, and so on, until there are no more females in that line. You are now 18, or the teacher, and you are pregnant. And you are within the first 100 days of your pregnancy. You may not at the beginning even know that you are pregnant. In the first 100 days, the ovarian follicles in your baby, they have absolutely no protection against microwaves. None, not a single bit. The areas in the cells, for the scientists, the protein 53, the nuclear core complex that fights against radiation, they are non-existent. And my question for any scientist is, what is the safe level of microwave irradiation for the first 100 days of an embryo? But there isn't one. Please rethink your Wi-Fi, because we can avoid all of this. We can avoid the whole lot. There is a simple solution to this and most other problems. All you want is a piece of wire about that long. That's it. A particularly interesting paper, the Department of Biophysics and Radiation, Ankara, they have shown that the thyroid in children, which is the master gland, is particularly sensitive to Wi-Fi, the frequency of Wi-Fi radiation. A research paper from India, where they say the microwaves lead to bone weakening, which is the last thing you want in school children who are trying to build their bones up. There is one organization that isn't mad, and I have the utmost respect for the people who represent it, again free of charge, and the work they do, and it is UNICEF, the children's charity UNICEF. They protect children all over the world. They decided to investigate, and they wrote a paper, Electromagnetic Fields from Phones, Health Effects on Children and Teenagers. They looked into it themselves, and they published their paper. They found an 85% increase in central nervous system disorders, 36% in epilepsy, mental retardation, an increase of 11%, blood and immune disorders, which will obviously come from the bone marrow, 82% with a risk to the fetus. And they published it. A study was done in 2003 and 2005. They found around 200 schools with leukemia or cancer clusters where they had transmitters in the playground. They found Miscarriages, mostly from lady teachers. In fact, the miscarry rates, I know this from the Cold War because pregnant women were deliberately exposed to microwaves, and they found a 57.7% of the women had miscarriages. And that was written up by the World Health Organization. Brain cancers, other cancers, breast cancers. This particular one here, and just one of the citations here. Telecom giant Orange has suspended operation at a school phone mast site in Paris after 8 cases of cancer were confirmed among children in the district. That's just one of the, in this particular one, 138. This is the breast of a lady. It is immensely cancerous, and she used to drive a lot. And whilst driving, she used to like to use her cell phone, and she used to tuck it into her bra. This was the result. Now, one case obviously doesn't make this to be true. But there isn't just one case. There are 45 research papers here on breast tissue turning cancerous from low-level microwaves. This is a paper, 2011, university here. It says they have a direct link to 4,924 cancer deaths from a particular radius around the transmitters. They studied the before and answer. This is in Brazil. But this is nothing new. It was published in the year 2000. This paper, Evidence Radiation is Genotoxic, in other words, cancer-causing, and it was made for the parliaments of New Zealand, Italy, Austria, Ireland, and the European Parliament in Brussels. And the conclusion of this paper: cell phones will highly probably increase many neurological diseases and brain tumors over the next 10 to 20 years. Cell sites will highly probably increase miscarriage, many cancers, many diseases, significant neurological and cardiac diseases, and death. A recent paper, Cancer in the EU has now reached epidemic levels. They have now published a paper where, for the first time ever, cancers are now exceeding birth rates. Again, in a top-secret course between 2001 and 2007, course number 11, students, these would be scientists, will be familiar with current knowledge. That is, cancer, memory, brain function, damage to the eye, skin, and birth defects can be caused by this radiation. And that is borne out in this document, the one I said is most dangerous, because apart from the top line here, all of the rest of this are illnesses which you can expect to get if you are exposed to radiation. And it says here, exposed to microwave radiation below thermal effects. In other words, below the safety level. And then they list all of the psychiatric problems and all of the physical problems. Some of them they describe as severe neuropathological symptoms. That is why we are in this mess. This is a top-secret document, or it was till I got hold of it. Biological effects on health hazards, microwave irradiation. They specifically say here, this is radiofrequency microwave irradiation. This particular document was 350 pages. The Naval Medical Research Institute, a very highly regarded research laboratory service, again United States, they talk about altered menstrual activity for ladies and a lot of fetal development problems. And they say here it is attributed to microwave and radio frequency radiation. The mobile industry themselves have covered their backs. This is a document published by the Mobile Manufacturers Forum, the industry. They have listed problems from scientific research to do with embryos, testes in boys, fetus in girls, sperm in boys. They have listed problems in Belgium, China, Egypt, France, Italy, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Poland, Slovak Republic, Switzerland, Turkey, Ukraine, Venezuela. This is a study carried out by the industry on its own microwaves. And they have said it can cause neurological damage in children. One of the studies here was actually carried out by the industry itself. And its conclusion, if you are near a transmitter, it can cause the cancer initiators and cancer promoters in the body to become active. An article appeared in Scientific America on cancer, and it said if the cancer initiators and cancer promoters are activated, they actually did a whole long line written by oncologists on how that can develop into cancer. There is no case to be defended. Microwaves cause cancer. Not in everybody, in some people. If you're going to do something that injures humans, you're also going to injure the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, because we're basically all the same. The basis that makes DNA is the same. The microwaves don't distinguish. This is a 20-page document on animals near transmitters that have been found dead, deformed, had their immune systems compromised. They've had birth problems, birth defects, genetic defects, and the animals in the study, and this is a reputable study, were cows, cats, dogs, hamsters, whales, birds, bees, bats, and butterflies in this one study. There are 14 references, some by university professors who are beekeepers. And you can't get more knowledgeable than a university professor who is a beekeeper. And references come to the same conclusion that the poor bumblebee or honeybee, they do not stand a chance against the microwave industry. Not a chance. Because the resonant frequency of the transmitters is the resonant frequency of the bee. And there are other things also with the bee which are irritated, again, by the pulse frequencies and the microwaves. The most academic scientific paper in the world, Nature, published an article here explaining why birds will be misled by magnetic waves. The magnetic waves go in the brain, and to put it simply, it's roughly 640 times stronger than the Earth's magnetic field that they use. The same thing happens in humans. We have the same system in our brains, as do ants, bees, bats, that they all have that system. So if it works for one, it works for other. There are a list of 20 experiments, all peer-reviewed, independently, and published. There are 20 of them here on birds. So there is no doubt that birds are being affected. There are 28 peer-reviewed and published studies on trees, plants, bushes being affected by electromagnetic waves. Bristol University, Professor Dennis Henschel, radiology department physicist, he has published a list, or he has quoted a list here of around 8,000 papers concerning low-level microwaves and defects in animals, from animal navigation, magnetic absorption in plants, resonance in animals, around 8,000 papers, and not one is being listened to. If we destroy the pollinating insects annually, it will cost this planet $0.4 trillion in lost production. And that has to be made up. And that will be made up by a rise in the cost of living. $0.4 trillion. And this is the Times producing this. The total cost of the entire environment, if we use it, is $33 trillion a year. and somebody will have to pay for that. It is possible to have transmitters taken down. In some of the countries I've been to, they say, well, this transmitter went up, the industry spokesperson came up, and it's usually the same thing. They say, these are radio waves, we fully comply with the ICNIRP certificate, the International Certificate for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. We're well within the safety limit. There's no worries about this, Governor. We'll put it up there, sign here, and we'll give you the money. And the transmitter goes up, and in one particular country, within 18 months, people had to start leaving because of the cancers and the leukemias and the illnesses. I was asked if I would go and represent them. It was a township in Africa. I worked for free, the barrister worked for free, and we took on the industry. And we found, and this may be here, if you want a transmitter taken down in school, or near a school, or near your house, this worked. And it's worked, as far as I know, 3 times. The industry say, we comply with the ICNIRP guidelines, the International Certificate Guidelines. That is not true. It is not true if they haven't followed them. I have yet to find one person that has read them, especially decision makers. And my first question to the decision makers is, have you read them? And this is your legal argument if you want something taken down. Because I guarantee they would not have done this, and the transmitters would have been put up illegally. And I'm not a lawyer, this is a lawyer's argument, but if they have lied or not told you the truth, what I'm saying is you may have a case in law to have it taken down. This is the International Certificate, and I have read it, and here on page 545, it says, children, the elderly, and some chronically ill people might have a lower tolerance for one or more forms of this radiation than the rest of the population. Separate guideline levels may be necessary. What they should have done, if they followed these, is knock on every door, found out who lives there, how sick you are, how old you are, how young you are. They should have documented everybody within the radius of the transmitter, and that should be able to be produced in court. If they haven't done it, they have not complied with the international certificate. It says here, decision makers should review current scientific literature and determine an appropriate reduction factor for known illnesses from radiation. They should show evidence of reading current scientific literature, and they should say, right, this paper says this level is dangerous, this paper says this is dangerous. We will set our safety level for the school or the hospital or the nursing home or whatever here. And that requires scientific evidence and explanation. If they say to you, we have abided by the international certificate, they must be able to produce this. And if they can't, then they have not told the truth. If they went to court, they would have lost. One of my aims is to protect the future generation of your children. You only need one school to get Wi-Fi taken out, because the mothers in the next school who know those mothers say, well, hang on, I know her and I trust her, and if they're worried about it, these are my children now here in this school. And you get the domino effect, and it starts to go quite quickly, and it's happening now in Canada.